Hello and happy Thursday. Oh, Wednesday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Different time for us than usual. It's Wednesday night, but we figured Turfway canceled, so we might as well fill the airways up with something. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, this gentleman over here, Mr. Caleb Knight, has got a date with a dog tomorrow. He's picking up a puppy. So congratulations, Caleb. Let me see if the clapping works. I don't know if it does or not. I don't know if that comes through.
Yeah, we can hear it. Well, I can hear
it. But congrats. And what kind of dog you said it was?
Yeah, thanks. It's a lab mix. It's a rescue, about a year old, a blonde lab named Shiloh. So picking him up tomorrow after work. So probably wouldn't be able to make it back in time for the stream, but yeah, it all works out. I'm looking forward to the stream. I'm looking forward to having some doggo companionship.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Do you don't like dogs, man?
I mean, dude, we just got done talking about the dog situation before, so I don't think we don't gotta get into that story. But
More of a cat
no,
thing.
I have no qualms against dogs. I'm dog agnostic, I guess you'll say. I had a dog growing up, like most people, or like a lot of people, not most, but yeah, just I don't know, responsibility, man. Like I don't know, that's overrated. Commitment, I don't know. Maybe you're not as prone to not as adverse to commitment as you once thought, Caleb. Who knows?
Maybe you just got to find the right bitch.
Oh my God! All right, Mark. Why is Mark not working here? I think Mark's been having some internet issues, so we'll bring him in here in a little bit. But Caleb, what are you drinking there, my friend? That you have a brown bottle that you very rarely have.
So I was gonna do dry January, and instead I decided to do like damp January instead. So trying to not do too much, bourbon this month, but I do have some beers, especially some leftovers that I kind of need to kill before they get skunked. So I've got a Breckenridge Brewery Christmas Ale that is probably getting towards the end of its decent shelf life, but honestly still pretty good. It's just like a standard like ale, brown lager kind of a drink. Awesome beer scene in Denver, so I'm trying to try some new local brews while I'm here, and Breckenridge Brewery is one of them. I think they do ship. They're not just local, but yeah, it's pretty good.
I think back in the day they used to make like a vanilla porter that used to get sent out a lot of places. So that one I know for sure. I haven't had much. Well, hopefully this doesn't make you too jealous, but I have a nice Old Forester single barrel strength store pick here, which is pretty nice. I've been sipping on it most of the night. So I got off work, played some Football Manager for a couple of hours. So I looked at some spreadsheets like our friend Steve, and was sitting there playing through some stuff. Atletico de Quiero here is asking, has Life is Good been racing? Life is Good has been retired.
Been retired ever since I think Flightline bullied him in the Breeders' Cup Classic, right?
Probably. Because I think weren't they going to try and run in the Pegasus, and then like they were like, nah, never mind.
Yeah, I don't think they did. I'm sure he's retired. I don't know where he went to stand.
Yeah. Well, we got a interesting pick 5 sequence here, and we'll see when our compatriot Mark Capitan joins. He looks like he's having some internet issues, but I guess before we jump in too deep into race 9, I guess I wanted to get your overall thoughts on the sequence, because I was talking to Mark a little bit before the stream, and I had different thoughts than I think he did. Overall, what did you think of the sequence? Did you like? I mean, on a scale of Evil Bob Dole to 10, where did you land on this one?
I I think it's an okay sequence. I don't think it's going to pay 10,000 or anything like that. I don't see a ton of bombs in at least 3 of the 5 races. But I do think it's the kind of sequence where you can probably find some very usable 5-1 kind of runners, 6-1 runners, maybe the freak 8-1 or 10-1. Without lines, it's a little bit tricky to say how the public is going to bet this. Even if the lines end up being wrong, I do tend to think it influences where the money ends up going to some extent. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we see, to tip the hand a little bit, I don't think we see any massive surprises in the Pegasus races themselves. But I think in maybe the first 3, there might be a chance for a price or two. So I thought it was fine. I don't love it. I don't have any intention to get super invested, but I think they're big fields and they're competitive races. So I don't think it's bad.
And I guess a brief question on maybe the gambler's favorite thing to talk about, which is morning lines. How did you feel about the morning lines on some of these races?
Well, like, I don't have them. Are they up?
Oh, okay. Well, good. Because so there was a race where Mark is like, I'm absolutely against the favorite. And I was like, oh, and I was like, who are you against? He's like, because he capped it without morning lines, and the horse he was talking about was 20-1. so I don't know. I don't know if the morning lines are bad or if it's just Mark being Mark. I'm not.
It's
not
probably
really entirely
both,
sure.
but I mean, I don't like on Timeform or Brisnet. I don't have morning lines. So, do they post them on Twitter or are they actually on your form?
I have them on.
Oh,
I
they're
have
actually
them
on your
Brisnet.
form. I see them. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting to see. If I'm massively against any 20-1 favorites.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
I'm hoping I'm back. Let's hopefully my country interwebs has decided to stop shitting itself. So apologies.
I was actually having a ton of issues yesterday with my internet. My VPN at work kept on dropping, and it was just real bad. So, but we were just talking briefly about your comment on the morning lines when we were like looking at this earlier. But Caleb also capped us without morning lines, so maybe he'll get surprised too. Maybe
Yeah,
surprises.
it was really baffling. I mean, I went through this card and capped it without morning lines and whatever, and then the two of us were kind of chatting really briefly before we hopped on, and I was looking like, wait, this horse is 20-1. I expect this horse would be second choice at 5-2, like those kind of things where it's not like it was a little off, just bafflingly off. So I'm very interested to see where you guys land because this felt really bizarre, and I thought I was going to be against a couple of shorter priced horses, and turns out I'm against a favorite, but I'm also against a horse that was 20-1. I thought would be second choice, so it should be interesting as we go through this.
Yeah. So we're gonna start here with race 9, the McKnight Grade 3. We're gonna go 1.5 miles on the turf here. Your morning line favorite in this race is the number 11 Bold Act. You have 3-1 on limited liability. Then you get 6-1 on cash equity. You get 8-1 on Caleb's top pick, Rock Emperor, because I know he loves that horse. Then you get double digits on everybody else. I mean, I'll get us started with this one because I thought this is a pretty simple race. I really had a hard time getting around the 11 Bold Act in this race, and it was one of those situations I thought where once I started looking at horses out other than the 11, like I could probably go like 5 or 6 deep here. Because I think once you get past the 11, a lot of these horses start to look the same. I even tried to look maybe possibly at some type of like pace play. Honestly, like if I were to take a shot with a price horse in this race, it'd probably be the 3 horse in here, Cathkin Peak. And this is just because I'm not entirely sure how much speed is actually signed up on here. And granted, I know it's 1.5 miles, but I mean that Gulfstream turf course is fast. And this is a horse that hasn't tried Gulfstream yet. Gets Jose Ortiz aboard, and I think he's an aggressive jock. You see a nice work pattern here for this horse, and Mike Maker is pretty good at doing this and taking these horses, kind of going long, but probably more like a C type for me, or if I was playing a tournament, maybe a horse I'd use as a tournament play. But Caleb, where did you land here?
Yeah, so I see this one quite a bit different than you, Josh, I think, which, makes for some good conversation. To me, Bold Act, I mean, you made a comment of if you go past him, everybody looks the same. I think he looks the same as everybody else, so I almost kind of take the opposite side of that argument in the sense that he's just a horse in this race. And yeah, he can win, but he's not a 2-to-1 shot. He's not a 3-to-1 shot for me. He's probably one of 3 horses that I think are about equally likely to win and is going to offer significantly poorer value just given the connections that are here. It just feels like he should have won some of these races that he's been in. I mean, it's not like he's running into monsters or other Europeans. I mean, he's losing to, Sugoi twice, Highway Robber, the Ghost of Web Slinger, Silver Knot. I mean, it's just like these aren't great horses he's losing to. And I'm just kind of wondering if he's fine. I mean, this is not a super strong field, and maybe the race that he's been showing up with is good enough. But I'm just a little bit skeptical to take a short price on him when I think he just looks like any other horse in this race to me. With that being said, I decided to go for my top pick. I did end up on the second choice, Limited Liability. I'll probably kind of spread this race, admittedly. I don't have any conviction in here to land on one specific horse, but I do think that Limited Liability is one who's been improving and running at a consistently high level this year. Essentially, I ran into the Gray Wizard 3 times in a row, who is probably maybe a half step better than Limited Liability, depending on which version of the Gray Wizard shows up. But Limited Liability was able to turn the tables 2 back at Kentucky Downs and do it pretty decisively. And then last time out, just got run down by a better horse in Integration, who we'll talk about later in the Pegasus Turf. So I think Limited Liability seems to see this trip. I mean, has wins all the way out to over 2 miles over the undulating Kentucky Downs turf course. Has a little bit of speed if he needs it, but probably is going to be, sitting more mid-pack trip. I think ground loss can be a big deal in these 1.5-mile turf races. So I do kind of prefer horses that are drawn inside or that are projected to save a little bit of ground. So I do like Limited Liability as my top selection. I'll briefly kind of just touch on 2 others because I don't think Mark will have them, but I could be wrong. The other 2 I did kind of throw in here as kind of a spread play is the number 4 Goldeneye and then the number 8 Yamato. And I'll admit, in these kind of races, I probably discount speed figures a little bit more than I will in other races, simply because we just don't run a ton of 1.5 or these turf marathon type races. And there's so many horses that have never done this before that I just don't, it's hard to project how that form is going to translate. So I kind of gravitated towards 2 horses that have proven to me that this is their trip. This is what they want to do. Goldeneye won 2 of his last 3 attempts at 1.5 miles at Keeneland and Kentucky Downs, both pretty nice allowance races. Stepped up to, grade 2 company at Del Mar and tried to wire a field. Very hard to wire a field at Del Mar. Just wasn't quite good enough that day. It happens. But I still like the fact that, the distance is not a question for him in here. And the same argument kind of goes for the number 8 Yamato. And this horse definitely has some textbook dirty form because he's coming out of 2 synthetic races and then a 1.25-mile race that got washed off the turf. But the horse has 3 wins from 7 starts at 1.5 miles and 2 wins from 7 starts at Gulfstream. There's very few trainers that are better at getting horses to stretch out on the grass than Mike Maker. So despite the pedigree being a little bit nebulous, this horse has proven this is a trip he wants to do. And I'm not sure if he's quite this talented, but yeah, I assumed you would get probably in the ballpark of 15 or 20 to 1 on him. So he's one that I'll take a shot on as well. It might offer some value. So I was 1 as kind of my top pick, with the 4 and the 7 is horses that 4 and the 8 is those that I'm probably going to have on some tickets. Steven, this is making me sad.
Nothing brings him more joy than seeing you cap GP. So, Mark, where do you land?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really tough race. I tend to take a little bit of both of your takes here, which is odd because it's normally Caleb that's the in-between person. But I mean, I have nothing, great to say about Bold Act, but nothing horribly against the horse size there either. It's a horse that you got 4 starts in the States, does not have a win, but the speed figures all say he's a player in this race. So, I thought somebody like Bold Act could be really interesting here. It does need probably a bit of a pace setup, and he just hasn't quite gotten it done. It's interesting to see William Buick take the mount. I realize he's here for other mounts later on in the card, and he could be a major player here, but I don't know. I mean, I think 2-1 is way too short on him. Could he win? Of course, but there's other interesting players in here. You know, I thought the 12 cash equity, who again, another one of these horses that kind of fits the mold for this race, who a horse that just hasn't won in forever. But the speed figures fit kind of there. Could maybe deal with the stretch out. You know, maybe has a case of the hangs. Horse does like to finish second quite a bit, but you know, I thought was an interesting player. And I also thought somebody like the 13 Dashman for Brian Lynch at a bit of a price. If that horse draws in, just needs a scratch out of the field, another major player. At least this is a horse that is a little bit more lightly raced and maybe still has some more upside left in the tank. You know, but I don't love the fact there's none of those horses that I kind of want to, you know, whatever, fall on the sword or really, you know, get super aggressively behind. I think this is, you know, probably more Caleb's point, or the kind of race you want to spread. There's no horse in here that's a win machine. There's no horse that really towers over the field. I think you want the coverage in this type of a race. I think you can take stands later on, but this is the race of all of them that I thought you needed a little bit more of spread in. And the other horse that I had in here was the 5 horse, which was Anglophile for another Brian Lynch horse. Again, another one of these horses that hasn't won in forever. But you know, you're going to get a little bit of a price, and you know, there's definitely some jockey karaoke in here. So I really wonder what's going to happen with some of the pace complexion. I would imagine Javi's going to be a little bit more aggressive than somebody like a Declan Cannon. So is that horse going to be a little bit more forwardly placed, be more part of the pace complexion? And you know, given how Gulfstream tends to play on these marathon races, maybe be a player, you know, a player towards the end of the race. So there's a lot of ways you can go in here. And again, this is a race. I think to Caleb's point, you want to spread here. You just want to kind of stay alive if you're targeting this pick 5.
Apparently, you also want to sing because you said jockey karaoke instead of jockey carousel is what I think you wanted to say.
Yeah, jockey. I wanted to say I was trying to imply that there's a lot of jockeys who've jumped around. I don't really know what you call that, but you know, a lot of spots where jockeys have there's no consistency here. There's no jockey that's just stuck. You're seeing a lot of player like, oh geez, I did really well last out, but I'm on a different horse now. Just a lot of moving around in the jockey games here.
He was just so excited to simp for Castellano, he tripped over his words.
I was just well, that was the other thing I wanted to say. Yeah. It was like I think that's the wrong trainer for Mark, but
Josh doesn't see. This is the thing, we switched platforms and Josh doesn't have it all queued up with the Javi simp, so I'm a little disappointed.
I probably have it, but I'm rusty. There we go. Cobb musical chairs.
Right. Thank you,
musical
Cobb.
chairs.
That's
right.
Musical chairs.
Not karaoke. Clearly
not karaoke. I don't know where that came from. Apologies.
You know, I'll be honest with you guys. The fact that William Buick gets up for Bold Act is doing a lot of heavy lifting for me, I think, here. But Caleb, I'm just like curious, right? I mean, what Silver Knot goes off at odds on in this race, doesn't he?
I don't think so necessarily. Like, he was pretty bad in his last 2.
Oh, I guess, yeah. I'm thinking.
But yeah, there was a version of him like a year ago or maybe 8 months ago that would have, but his last 2 races I think would sour a lot of people.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, I honestly like I'm not like in love with the 11, but I don't know. It just feels like one of those things where that feels like the race. That feels like the classic Caleb race, or Mark race, where like you go like 6 wide and then 2-1 just wins just to spite everybody.
Could happen for sure.
And wins by a nose, right? Wins by a nose with just like an absolute awful trip. Like it's just the worst situation for everybody except for those who singled it.
But like Caleb, did you try to make a case for the 4 Goldeneye? Was that one of the horses?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay. That was the one horse I wanted to loop back and talk about because I think you're talking about a lot of horses in that entire race that are really suspect going this trip. There's not a lot of horses that have wins there, and with Goldeneye, you have a horse that's 2 for 3 going it. You know, so at least a horse that you know can get the distance. So, yeah, no, I agree with you on Goldeneye there.
Yeah, I mean, gets the distance. That Del Mar race completely fell apart. Very hard track to wire. You know, I mean, yeah. I don't. What's the price on Goldeneye? 30-1.
30-1. Which
I don't
just
think
seems. No, you don't get half that. 15. Yeah, you get half that, right? 15, 12, 15-1 range.
Yeah, I could see that.
All right. Anything else in this race?
I don't really like the horse, but I'm curious where they put Utah Beach, number 10, because I think that's a horse I could see taking money.
10-1.
10-1.
10
Yeah,
to
and I
1,
agree.
okay.
Don't like the horse at all.
I don't like him, but I think he'll go off quite a bit less than that.
How did the other products like the Sycamore? I mean, I know Boldak got a nice number out of there, and Utah Beach was a couple lengths back. So Brisnet
Timeform has
really
it
likes
very
that race.
fast.
Yeah, Brisnet really likes that race, but you know how Brisnet is once you get to a mile and a half.
Yeah.
It's like throwing darts.
Timeform also has it very fast. I think it's too fast. I also think Keeneland figs that were too fast the entire fall on all surfaces. I think they were too fast. Looking at runbacks, it's hard to make a definitive argument. Segoy was like 5th in that race with a 119. He came out to run 2nd next out, but regressed. You actually had 2 horses that improved next out on placing, but regressed by about 3 to 5 points. So I don't think it's way too fast, but it probably on Timeform it's a little faster than I would put it, but hard to say.
Yeah, and then well, I guess what's interesting about that race is, at least like I said, I'm looking on Briz. Then that 2 mile race comes back, and it comes back super slow on Brisnet. And like I said, once you start getting past a mile and a half, like those numbers should be just like through the roof, right? It should be like stonks, right? Everything just goes up as the distance gets longer, and it regressed by 10 points. So because I tried to kind of like look at like Lord Edward Stark was a horse I took a look at for a second, because he's an interesting horse in that they were running him, those real short mile and 16th races. And then as soon as they stretch him out, really long, obviously he wins a listed stakes over, at 60 to 1. So maybe this is just one that, hey, like we haven't run this horse, going the mile and a half plus like type marathon distances. Maybe the extra distance helps, but that figure came back so low. I don't know. I don't think I could get there.
Yeah, that is not a fast race on Timeform either.
Yeah.
Which is probably me. I don't think it was a fast race, but I also think that the Sycamore, which Utah Beach exited from, was probably a little too fast.
Yeah. All right. Race 10 here. Mile and 16th on the turf. The Pegasus World Cup Filly Mare Turf Invitational. This is a pretty flat race as far as morning lines are concerned. Your morning line favorite is actually the 1, Rakia, at 4 to 1. You get Sacred Wish at 9 to 2, Fluffy Socks at 5 to 1, everyone's favorite horse on this stream. 6 to 1 on Be Your Best, 8 to 1 on Papilio and Bless My Stars. Has Papilio figured out how to straighten out yet, or is he still? No, still not. And then you get double digits on everybody else here. So, Mark, since you joined the stream late, I'll let you go first here. Where did you land here?
I hate to be I guess I'm going back to my prior forum, which is that I'm going to land on the chalk here, which is Rakia, the 1. I think Rakia probably ends up sitting the same exact trip as the last out. And I realize, Todd Pletcher is not the best with, new trainers to his barn, but I would imagine the Owen Burrow last out starter was probably not actually. This was actually the last out was probably in his barn. I think this horse gets the lead, and it again might just kind of wire this field. Nice to see Frankie shipping in for the mount. And I didn't think that Goldakova was a terrible race. There's definitely some quality in there with Sacred Wish coming back here, and Sacred Wish is going to be a major kind of player in here, probably second choice in this race. But I think Rakia probably breaks from the rail, gets the lead, and might just once again wire this field. I just I have a hard time really poking any holes. Again, this is one of these Euro shippers that I don't know. I had a really hard time kind of getting around this horse. I spent a lot of time looking at this race and really trying to find other places to go, and I really had a hard time. There's a lot of horses in here that are just either way too slow on figures, or horses that just hate winning, and it was a really hard race for me to kind of find some other place to go. The only other horse I was was a little interested in here, and I don't really know what to do with is the 6, Donna Clota, who is the Chilean import. Again, anytime you see one of these Chilean horses shipping to the States, the question is always, well, what were they beating? This horse has won 3 in a row. The last 3 were kind of blowouts. Horse kind of destroyed the field. Now, this is a bit of a cutback. You're catching a bit of a shorter trip, so there's an argument to be said that maybe it's a little shorter than this horse really wants to be going, because it seems like this one was doing better more at the classic distances. But at least you're going to get a bit of a price. You're getting Ortiz or Jose Ortiz up for what is it? Nacho Carrez is what we're calling. What your officially his name is nickname?
Nacho,
Nacho.
Yep.
For the Carrez barn, and I mean, that was the only other horse I was really kind of interested in this field. Beyond that, I just kind of felt that it was a lot of horses that I really know what they are. The fluffy socks of the world, who I think at this point in her career, we really kind of know what she is. So I ended up 1-6, and beyond that, I really had a big gap to any other horses I was really interested in.
I want to test something out here, guys. It's something that we haven't done. I agree with Mark. I think Rakia is the horse to beat in this race. I have it as a lone A. I have 1B. And we're gonna put out the horse owes me money alert on this one. Because this is the number 3 horse, Be Your Best. This horse, I swear, is a noted money burner for me, that I had chased like all last year, and then finally when I got off, the horse decided to win 2 straight. So I think I'm back aboard here on the E8 train. So no surprise here, but I think I kind of agree with Mark. I honestly see this happening one of 2 ways: Be Your Best gets out in the lead and wires, or just the one sits the dream trip off of Be Your Best and wins the race. I mean, I just think one of these 2 on the front end are going to win. I just don't really see any other way kind of around it. I think the 1 is that good of a horse. You're going to say, Mark?
Yeah. So do you think Be Your Best is actually faster early? Do you think that the horse has more early pace? I mean, Time Form has the 1, a pretty clear leader early, with everybody else kind of, sitting second flight. I mean, do you think Be Your Best can actually press the 1 early?
I mean, I think that's his only chance at winning, is I think he's got to go. And I just see the jock. I see Zayas aboard, and I mean, you got Safi. I mean, you got to figure he's going to be aggressive. I mean, I guess last time out he sat just off, but I just think that's what's going to happen. Those 2 horses are going to be 1-2, and one of them is going to win. Yeah, Steven saying that Caleb had to start drinking early to deal with this. That's why it's a moist November, whatever you called it.
It's a damp January. It's not dry.
January. It's not dry because he's got to do these streams. But honestly, I think it's 1-3. One of those 2 horses win. It's going to be somebody on the front end or near it, and I think it's one of those 2. Caleb, you normally split the difference. I don't know how you're going to split this one.
So I agree with you, Josh, with probably 1 additional horse. I do, and which I guess by extension agrees with Mark. I do think Rakia is probably the horse to beat in here. It's a little bit tough for me to know what to think of her, to be honest. She was always a sprinter overseas. She came over here in her first start for Owen Burrows and it ran a good race, but she had a pretty soft trip that day. I mean, Time Form has those fractions. It's blue. She didn't go super fast. It is tough to wire at Del Mar, so I will give her some extra credit there. But it isn't like she was blitzing an early pace. I'm a little surprised they have her as such a clear lead on the pace projector, because I do think that Be Your Best is going to be giving her pretty much anything she can handle as well up front. I do think they're probably the 2 horses that go to the front, and they might be the only 2, depending what maybe a horse like the number 9 Oceans Clubs thinks. But for me, I like Rakia better than Be Your Best, but I do have enough respect for Be Your Best that she'll make my tickets, I think. But the one horse I do like that we haven't really talked about is, I guess, my money burner horse, which is the number 10 Sacred Wish, who I haven't really been on the right side of forever, and finally jump off the horse. And then she wins last time at like 12-1 in the matriarch. But I thought that was a good race, and I thought she beat a good field. I mean, Gina Romantica, we know, is a handful on her best day. AG Bullet can run like the wind up front. I mean, set some blistering fractions in other races, and maybe a little bit better shorter, but is certainly still a respectable horse to be sure. You had, I think, like 3 other Chad Browns in that race besides Gina Romantica. You had a couple. It was a good field, and she did get a really good trip that day. So I can understand maybe being hesitant to back her after she kind of tripped out. But she's also had kind of awful trips in her 3 or 4 races before that, where she was boxed in, didn't get clear until late, or just stuck behind really slow paces. So for me, she's one that if the 1 and the 3 and potentially the 9 do go up there and cook a little bit up front, she's the off-pace runner that I want more than anybody else. So Sacred Wish is another one that I'm going to use pretty prominently in here.
So you're betting Father Time up for George Weaver? That's where we're going here?
I mean, he had the secret last time. I mean, her 2 best races have pretty much been with Father Time. So I guess, maybe he's got some magic dust or whatever left.
I said just mentioning, because as on, I know one of us has been a little critical of him at times. So just checking.
I think this might be the right time to use this, but maybe I'm wrong. Isn't JJ like 10 years older than Johnny V, and you're over here bashing Johnny V? Get out of here.
I think JJ's older than Javi, actually.
That's what I meant.
You mean JV is older than Javi?
Oh, you think JV's older? Either way, Javi's not exactly young spring chicken.
Johnny V is 53.
So JJ's like what, 67?
I think it's
47. So yeah.
Wow, really?
So 6 years older.
JJ's been retired for like 5 years. Oh, that's wild.
And Mike Smith is like 90, right?
I mean, turf god Mike Smith, man, he keeps on churning away. Race 11 here, 7 furlongs. Inside information. Mark, you and I talked about this race briefly before the stream, and I realized that I didn't really even cap the race because I skipped it because I was just like, I can't look at this. I gotta move on because this was just something else. Yeah, we got 2-1 on Mystic Lake, 3-1 on Emery, 4-1 on Olivia Darling, 5-1 on Nick Style, 8-1 on Jody's Pride. Caleb, I'll let you go first. Where did you land here?
I will be. Anybody want to take a heads up bet with me that Emery will actually be the favorite and not Mystic Lake in this race?
I will wait.
I think Emery will be the favorite.
100% Emery's the favorite. There's no way Mystic Lake.
I mean, morning line. People give lines maker shit. I mean, sometimes it's deserved, sometimes it's not. But it's always tough when you miss the favorite. And I just see no world that Emery is not going to go off as the favorite in this race. I mean, she basically has 1 loss this year, I think, and only 2 losses in her career. And the 1 loss was to Ways and Means, who would also be an overwhelming favorite in this race. She's not super flashy. She doesn't really run the biggest figures in her wins, but I think she's just tactical. She's drawn perfectly outside, you can pick her spot, time her move, no excuse with traffic. She can be forward. She can come off the pace. She's pretty close to a single for me. I might have like 2 C's behind her perhaps, but I think she goes off closer to like 9-5, 8-5, maybe. I'm very shocked that they have her at 3-1 and not even as the favorite, because to me she's much the most likely winner in this race.
She reminds me a lot actually of a Good Night Olive type of horse, or a horse that just sort of wins but never blows you away and isn't super flashy or anything. She just wins races. So no, I couldn't believe. I was shocked that because I actually think Mystic Lake is somewhat of a takeout reducer in this race. Because if you want to look at the quintessential every other horse, isn't Mystic Lake like the definition of the every other horse? And this is the other race. I mean, if you go back 10 or 12 races, she literally wins every other race, and she clearly needs the reset to kind of get her stuff together, and then wins the next out. So no, I thought Mystic Lake was a terrible favorite in here, but I mean, if they're gonna make her the favorite, I will be again aggressively betting against her. I mean, there's a few ways to go in here, and I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Caleb, but no, I couldn't agree with you more.
No, that's pretty much my pitch here. I mean, we can talk C's a little bit later, but is anybody not using Emery? Maybe that's the easier way to put it. I mean, Mark, you kind of made your point similar to mine. Josh, it's been like a minute, so I know you've handicapped it by now.
Yeah, no, I definitely use Emery in here. I think I have one other horse, and I might even have that other horse as an A, honestly. But I will, like, I'm not using Mystic Lake, but to Mark's point, I do want to at least like give an excuse here for Mystic Lake, because every other race, the other is usually a race that this horse had no business running. Like, I don't know, going a mile and 16th on a Tapeta at Woodbine, win 7 furlongs at Tampa. Let's go a mile on the turf now. Win 7 furlongs at win 7 furlongs at Tampa. Let's go right back to the Tapeta. Loss. Win going 6 for, like, I don't know what the heck they're doing with this horse. Like, I mean, the only race where like she actually ran 3 races in a row that like made sense was that Pimlico race to Aqueduct to Charlestown. Like, other than that, like, I don't understand what they're doing with this horse. Like, why all of a sudden are you running this horse in the cotillion when she clearly did not want to go 2 turns before, and now, like, I don't know. I think this is just a very oddly campaigned horse. It wouldn't surprise me if this horse won here, just because, I mean, I do think the 6 and 7 furlong races all fit here, but I just don't know what they're doing with this horse. I'm surprised they haven't, like, I wouldn't, like, like we talk about like ruining horses, like by running them too deep or running them in conditions that they shouldn't be running. I just hope that that's not what happened here, but it's just a very, very oddly, this is like a campaign for a horse that doesn't win. You know what I mean? Like, where like they just don't know what to do with the horse. They very clearly should know what to do with this horse, right? Like, what I don't know. That's my big thing with it. Like, Mark, you're like, yeah, every other race, but then you look, the every other is like just some nonsense race that the horse shouldn't be running in. Like, I don't know.
But if you're making that argument, then you got to go back to her victory ride where she got beat by Emery, who's in this race. I think that becomes the argument, is that if you're going to say that, okay, there was a bunch of races she shouldn't have been in. Okay, argument that maybe she doesn't like the synth, maybe she doesn't like the turf. Cool, but Emery's also kind of proven the point that she's just a better horse. So I don't understand why Mystic Lake was the favorite in here. But there's a couple other ways that I'd be interested in going. I think there's a couple other interesting faces in here. One you just highlighted, which is Nick Style, the 2 for Bill Mott, who kind of is, I don't know, the new kind of quote unquote Emery, a lightly raced horse. Don't have a lot of starts, but she's done kind of everything right. Clearly enjoys this trip, going this this sort of 7 furlong trip where she's perfect. Last 2 were both really nice efforts. I mean, and she's also 2 for 2 at Gulfstream, where she debuted in the Knicks barn and absolutely destroyed fields, winning by 6 1/4 and 10 1/4 in a couple of races. So again, another horse that has every right to be a major player in here. And I think the other horse that I was at least a little bit interested in is the 8 horse Olivia Darling, who is another horse that, again, one of these 3 for 6 at Gulfstream, 5 of 6 in the money, and got a nice prep there, sort of end of November, a little bit of a longer layoff than I'd like to see, but another horse that had won the inside information going this trip at Gulfstream in a year ago. So I guess what you're defending champion. So who your defending champion who may get a little ignored on the board given some of the other players in here. So I thought Olivia Darling was the other one that I was a little interested in as well.
Yeah, just to touch a little bit on, so the other horse I did want to use was the 2 Nick Style, and this is just like, I mean, this is a horse that's won 5 of 6 starts, and the only start she lost was against Ways and Means. Like, I think this is similar to, I think, what we talked about with Emery. But at least on Brisnet, the horse looks a little slow compared to Emery. I'm not entirely sure what the Victory Ride came back with a really huge fig. I don't know what the other fig makers have, but I do think that
Everyone loved that race. It seemed like
yeah,
every fig came back hot.
yeah, I do think Nick Style would need to take a step forward. But I mean, this is a horse that's 5-1-0 in 6 starts. So tough to kind of ignore that type of form. And I think you're just going to get a better price on this horse than some of the others. So those are the two I'm using. I'm using the 2 and I'm using the 9. Caleb, was there anyone else you were interested in here?
Yeah, you guys kind of touched on them. I mean, the 2 was the one I probably had the most interest in using, Nick Style. Both of you mentioned that horse already. The other one that I don't know that I can make a good case for this horse on the win side. I mean, I might try anyway, but I'm not sure that I can. But then I could probably use for sure underneath as the number 3 Sterling Silver. And really the only main reason is I think that this horse gets completely lost on the board. And understandably, with a better pace setup, I think Sterling Silver might have a win shot. Without the pace setup, I don't know. She might be more likely to run underneath. But I feel like she's had legitimate excuses in her past couple. December 27th had the strongest rail bias at Aqueduct I've ever seen in my life. And she was 4 wide the entire way. 2 back, she was going a mile and an eighth, which is just too far for a horse like Sterling Silver, who's always been a sprinter. And then, 3 back, she ran okay. I mean, she still couldn't beat Ways and Means and, got within 2 lengths of Nick Style, who I also like in here. But that was a slow pace where Ways and Means kind of, sat second. Nick Style sat the pace, and really no passing happened the entire day. So, I mean, I do think there's some genuine excuses. If you dig way back, I mean, she used to be a pretty nice sprinter. She may not be good enough anymore. She may have never been good enough. She definitely needs to run a career top here or get a lot of pace help. But it's a hot barn. I think she has excuses, and I think the price will likely be right. That she's one that maybe more of an underneath play, but one that I do kind of have a little bit of interest in. But if anything, maybe I play like an Emery, Sterling Silver, Exacta, or Trifecta somehow.
Yeah, anything, Mark?
No, I think, honestly, I don't know how I would play the race, but I kind of mentioned the 3 that I was interested in, and I don't really think I need anybody else. So I don't want to make them all B or all A's because that feels a little dirty, but that's probably how I would play it, just because I think that's how the value proposition sort of sets out.
What did you guys think of Jody's Pride? Clearly a horse with a ton of talent as a 2-year-old. The comeback race at 3 was really impressive. And then the last 2 just kind of seems like the wheels fell off. Gets back to sprinting on the dirt now, with a new jockey up for the first time. She's not for me because she just has never run a race that's fast enough to win. And I think she'll be overbet based off of name recognition from the Breeders' Cup. 8-1 is not the right price there. But did any of you guys make the argument that maybe she can improve or take a big step forward?
I just need to see a race that really fits with these. I think she's just a clear cut below, and I have a really big argument that, like Louis says, getting up, she'll probably take money off that, and I really worry that she's going to be the kind of horse that goes off at 5 or 6 to 1, and is just a massive underlay, given that kind of thing. So no, she was one that, and I don't see her getting the pace set up either. Like, I don't know. She's going to be, I don't think of Gulfstream as being a track where you really want to come from 5 or 6 back. And that's probably what she's going to have to do. I just think she'll have way too much work to do in the lane. And I don't see, she needs to take a massive step forward. And her last couple have not really shown that she can. And again, maybe one of those, we talk about this all the time, those horses that kind of flash brilliance at a younger age and just never take that step forward as they get a little older.
I'm a little interested to see how she runs on the cutback. Honestly, we were talking about Mystic Lake, and like when you look at the 6, that's kind of like what I'm talking about. Like when you see these horses that are kind of campaigned a little bit funny. They obviously they ran the juvenile because, I mean, why not? And then they kind of went right back to routing this horse when the 2 wins came off those 6 furlong races. So Yeah, I'm a little interested to see. And then, like I said, you just get the random run in the pebbles, a mile on the turf first time. I mean, I get American Pharoah, and I see Uncle Sully saying Wednesdays. Really? Hey, Caleb's got a dog to see tomorrow.
That's right.
I'm sorry, we don't know what to do.
Hey,
Yeah, I don't know. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see the 6 run a pretty decent race. I think there is a talent there, but obviously we're looking at needing to take a huge step forward from last year, and a huge step forward from those, I think, 3-year-old races. So, or 2-year-old races rather. Anything else on this race?
Nope.
All right. Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational, going a mile and an eighth on the turf, and this your 2-1 favorite is Nation's Pride. 3-1 on the most notorious money burner probably in the older turf division right now, Integration. And then you get 6-1 on Major Dude, 8-1 on Mi Hermano Ramon, and then you get double digits on everybody else. I had kind of a difficult time once again here, and maybe I'm just turning into a Charles Appleby, William Buick simp, but Nation's Pride is the only horse I have written down anywhere. This is probably a single lone A, no B's or C's in this race, and I'm running all of it through Nation's Pride. I kind of have a hard time seeing anybody else kind of winning this race. I do think that they've tried running this horse a bit longer. Going the mile in 3/8. Mile. I think no mile and a half, but I do think that the shorter distance, the mile and the eighth, is good for the horse. So I had a hard time getting around Nation's Pride. I'm sure Caleb hates chalk, so I'm sure he's got some different horse here that he's going to use, but I don't know. I just had a hard time getting around it, so I'm interested to see where you guys land. Caleb, where did you go?
Well, Josh, I just have to ask. I mean, do you plan on playing this pick 5?
I mean, I don't think so,
because I think it's going to pay $35 if you hit it.
I know. I really don't like it. I mean, there is a horse in the next race that I'm very interested in. That's at double digits. So
yeah,
but I honestly that's kind of why I was asking, before we started, what you kind of thought of the sequence, because I honestly think this is an EBD sequence 100%. I think this is a 1 by like a 1 by 2 by 1 by 2 by 2 type thing, and you slam it for like $10-$20 or something. Like, I don't know. I had a hard time seeing past it, but where did you land, Caleb? Prove me wrong here.
I don't strongly dislike Nation's Pride. He's fine. My thing with him is that his last race was awful, and that gives me a little bit of pause, because the last time he ran in this exact race, he came over here to run the Man of War and got beat as the odds-on favorite. And he's kind of coming in off of a similar trajectory. He is now a 6-year-old horse. Appleby hasn't enjoyed the dominance this year that he has in past years. He still is, a huge threat. Don't get me wrong. I don't have the numbers. I'm sure Mark could run them in Formula later, but I know that at one point he was 50% in U.S. racing in graded stakes with like 60 starters or something like that, or 40 starters maybe. And it feels like in the last year and a half, he's probably down to like 20%, maybe not even that much, which is still respectable. But I think people still bet him like he has that dominant stable. And I just don't think he does anymore. Nation's Pride is fine. I think he's certainly better going longer. I don't love him at a mile and an eighth. I think he's done historically his best work at anywhere between a mile and a quarter and, maybe up to like a mile and 3/8 a little bit. But I really think a mile and a quarter is the sweet spot for this horse. And I just don't think he's that much better. Coming off of a terrible race, shipping back over here. I mean, we just call Integration the biggest money burner in older horse racing, and we're going to give Nation's Pride credit for beating him. Like, I just don't know. He could win, right? His numbers are fast. His figures are good. But at the value proposition, he's not one that I'm excited about. One I am excited about, and if you could show me the price, because I don't know what to expect. The number 3, Mi Hermano Ramon, I think is super exciting, and I'm hoping to get like 6 or 8 to 1 because I don't think these. What is he?
8 to 1 morning line.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, I don't California shippers, Saez is definitely not IRAD or whatever. So I don't think he's going to get pounded. But I mean, this horse has just, if you look at time form, I mean, he's one of the few horses in here that's actually fast enough to win. He's improved in each of his 4 starts since that big layoff. He's progressively moved forward. And last time out, he gave Johannes everything he could handle. I mean, just getting beat by less than a length. I don't think he was ever beating Johannes that day. He kind of was given maybe a tentative ride and took a little while to get clear. But Johannes would be odds on against this field. I mean, he almost won the Breeders' Cup Mile. He's had a phenomenal career so far as a 4-year-old or now 5-year-old, I guess. And the fact that Mark Glatt is shipping this horse across the country to run here, to me, it tells me he's extremely well meant. He's versatile, and I really like Mi Hermano Ramon in this race. Definitely my top selection and one that I hope to get some value on. I am a little bit spread in this race, but I'll kind of let Mark go before I talk any further.
Before you go, I did want to touch on Uncle Sully saying that he can be a tad sympathetic on you getting a dog, Caleb. He's asking if it was a wolf-hound doodle mix, and he would like to nominate the name Cat for Candy Ass Trip.
That would be a hell of a name. No, I appreciate the sympathy. It is a lab mix, and a buddy of mine just got a wolfadoodle, actually, ironically enough. I think he paid like $3,000 for the dog. So
goodness gracious.
Yeah. Crazy money for those doodle mixes, but they're great dogs.
That's all right. That's what this pick 3 is going to pay after I hit it for $100.
I've never met a doodle mix that wasn't an asshole. So, I mean, they're all a little bit, yeah. Anyways, no. I mean, Nation's Pride can definitely win this. And I think he's, when you kind of short list this race, he's a horse that, can he win? Of course he can, but he's one of the players. But he's going to be 2 to 1, or he maybe even shorter than that. And I think at those type of odds, you have to look other places and try to get around him. And when I cap this race, I always try to go and figure out, okay, who are horses I'm interested in, and who are horses that I absolutely hate in the spot. And I was looking at the 8 Spirit of St. Louis, and I'm going, geez, this is going to be your second choice. Before I saw morning lines, I mean, I was looking at Spirit of St. Louis and saying, geez, this is a 9 of 13 Chad Brown horse with Tyler Gaffleone up, who, has a win at this trip. And, for a while there last summer was an absolute win machine and just cashing checks right and left. And I expected Spirit of St. Louis was going to be 5 to 2, and I was going to be able to dunk all over him on stream. And then the morning line's 20 to 1, and I just can't do that. So, I mean, I'm hard against Spirit of St. Louis. There's probably no bigger downgrade in racing than putting Tyler Gaffleone up on this horse. But, anyways, my hatred of Tyler Gaffleone is well known. The one price horse I am very interested in here at, and is another one of these 20 to 1 morning line horses that I sort of scratch my head at, why is this horse 20 to 1, is the 10 horse Battle of Normandy.
He's 20 to 1?
He is 20 to 1.
That was my second choice. So, okay.
Dude,
yeah, no
he's my second choice.
Yeah.
You're talking about a horse that has won 4 in a row. His River City was really good. Yeah, there's been a little bit of, that jockey game. I mean, he's had 3 different jocks in 4 starts. I don't really know what the situation is there, but Shugs Barnes been white hot at Gulfstream. He's hitting at 31%. He's 41% when you throw his Jorge Ortiz up. And this is a horse that's just in really good form and has a ton of figures. And it's not like he's thrown one figure that fits in this race. He's got multiples. Both of his last 2 races make him a pretty major player in here if you're a figures person. So I think somebody like Battle of Normandy just has to be, at least for me, whether it be the value proposition or just outright, I think he's very close to your very short priced favorite in Nation's Pride. I think Battle of Normandy is an absolutely major player in this race. I had this is one of those races where I didn't want to go too crazy deep, because if I go much deeper than those 2, Nation's Pride and Battle of Normandy, I end up being sort of like 10 deep. So I thought those were both very, very interesting prices, and I'm assuming that from Caleb's reaction, the price in Battle of Normandy is a pipe dream of getting 20-1. But I'll throw it back to Caleb to see where his price is, because I have a feeling we may land on the same other price horse in this race.
I mean, that makes me unwell. 20-1. That horse is going to be. I mean, the only way this horse goes off above 5-1 is if Nation's Pride goes off odds on. I mean, I think he'll genuinely be like the
Agreed.
second or third pick.
5-2, 5-2, 3-1 range.
That short because I don't, but I think he'll be 9-2, 3-1 in that roll ball. Yeah,
no, I agree that feels about right.
Yeah, 20-1, and then people laugh at Gulfstream.
It is a big field.
Oh, but, I mean, it is a big field, right? Yeah, so prices, I don't actually hate Spirit of St. Louis. I did not think he'd be 5-2 because all those wins came against New York breds, and he's basically not just New York breds, but basically the same New York breds. So, it's not that impressive when you beat the same horses like 6 times. But he didn't embarrass himself in the Turf Mile. Just was against better horses for the most part. I don't think he's the most likely winner in here. I don't know if he'll make my ticket, but at 20-1, I don't hate him. The horses I did have in here as kind of prices besides that was I don't know that it'll be a price come to think of it. I'm starting to second guess myself, but what is the price on number 6, Major Dude?
6-1.
Yeah, not much of a price there. Okay. He's one I'm interested in. For the record, I'm using 3 and 10 as A's. So I'm using Mi Hermano Ramon and then Battle of Normandy as my A's. Anybody else at this point is like a B, probably at best. Major Dude's fine. I mean, he likes Gulfstream. He likes this distance. It's Irad Pletcher. Price probably won't be what I hope now that I'm kind of seeing all that. But I think he's a good horse and he can win this race. So I don't really have any strong knocks against him. I just don't think I've never thought he was that good. And the other horse that I'm probably going to have on a ticket, which I don't think is the one Mark's going to have, but we'll see, is the number 2, Formidable Man. I really like the fact that Rispoli is coming over to ride this horse. I've liked this horse ever since his American Turf at Churchill, when he set some blistering pace in a race that totally fell apart and just got nailed late by Tricari and then Laganos, who both have turned out to be fairly decent 3-year-old turf horses. They weren't heavily campaigned beyond that. I think Laganos has gone on to win a few more races. Tricari, I think, won the Penn Mile out of that race and maybe 1 or 2 more. It didn't quite back it up in the Audubon, but then came back to rattle off 3 in a row at Del Mar. Horse is very tractable, can go to the lead, can sit just off, and is 3 out of 4 at this distance. And honestly, 5 out of 9 on the turf lifetime. Likes to win. This is a tough spot, facing older horses for the first time. So this is more of a BC kind of a play for me. But in a race and maybe this is a question I'll kick back over, is where do you see the speed in this race? Because I didn't really see much at all, which is kind of why I looked at a horse like Formidable Man, who has flash speed in the past, or a horse like Spirit of St. Louis, who has had a little speed in the past. Battle of Normandy as well. But who even gets the lead here? Because it is not clear to me.
Yeah, so Formidable Man was my price horse, and the reason that I did like him was I thought there's a chance he ends up on the lead here. He's in this field where you don't, again, I agree with you don't have a ton of obvious pace players. I think he's the type of horse that does potentially make the lead, and maybe Rispoli gets a little bit aggressive with him. West Coast turf horse shipping to the East Coast, and does he try to go to the lead and get aggressive with this horse? And if he does, I do really, really like Formidable Man in this spot. And I guess I've said this in a couple of horses where I was saying like 5-2, 3-1 range, and not realizing this is a 12 horse field that's a little more competitive. I need to be a little bit more generous with my price offerings. But no, I do think Formidable Man is an interesting player in here. A horse that's, again, won his last 3, all with Rispoli up. Rispoli apparently very much gets this horse, so kind of knows what to do with him in a race that's, how the pace complexion shapes out is a little bit sketchy and a little bit unknown. I think there's a chance that Formidable Man goes to the front end and then gets real brave in the lane on a Gulfstream Park turf course, which does tend to be a little bit speed favoring.
Yeah, I actually had a tough time trying to figure out who would go to the lead here. Honestly, would you be surprised if they maybe hustle the 3 up a little bit, Caleb?
With Saez taking the mount, I mean, it wouldn't totally surprise me. I'd probably be surprised if he made the lead, just because the horse has never, has shown the ability to get to the front. I could see him. I think he'll be forward, but I don't think he'll be on the lead. But I don't think we'll see him 9th by 7 like when Hector took the mount either. I mean, Saez is going to have him probably in that first flight.
Honestly, I think another maybe dark horse to possibly get the lead might be the 4 with Dylan aboard. That's a horse that's gotten the lead a couple of times. I mean, last time in the Fort Lauderdale was forwardly placed on that slow pace. So, and Dylan was aboard, he sat second off that. If you go back, I think there's like a Woodbine race where this horse ended up on the lead. But because you see that Dylan's aboard again, maybe there's a shot that he's aggressive again here. But yeah, there's no like true speed in here. I mean, heck, I think Nation's Pride getting the lead's probably a bit of a thing. Spirit of St. Louis, I mean, yeah, there's just a bunch of different ways this could go. Heck, even Battle of Normandy's been on the lead at once in its career. So it's murky at best, I think, what's going to happen here. So yeah, I think maybe you do upgrade those inside drawn horses a little bit if if one of them wants to get aggressive. I think they'll get in a fairly easy lead here.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even look at the 4 all that closely, but just you mentioning him, I mean, I think there's argument. Dylan's riding fantastic, and this is a horse that, other than his Breeder Cup mile, which probably is in over his head, I mean, he's run some good races, has a tactical advantage against the field, likes Gulfstream. So yeah, I think you can make a lot of arguments for horses in this race if you start looking at angles like pace and things like
that. Uncle Sully saying, Caleb, sleep well tonight. It will be your last good night's sleep for a while.
Yeah, you're not the first person that's told me that, so I appreciate it.
Anything else on this race you guys want to talk about? Other than the fact that I took Nation's Pride as the lone A, and I don't know. Now you guys got me second guessing it, even more so than my first my first Appleby single. So no. All right. Race 13, mile and the 8th, Pegasus World Cup Invitational. Yeah, this is it's going to be an interesting race, I think. I know the older dirt division has not necessarily been great the last couple of years, but I think you have an interesting group of horses for this race. You got 5-2 on Locked, 3-1 on White Abario, 9-2 on Saudi Crown, 8-1 on Mystic Dan, and then you get double digits on everybody else here. Mark, I'll let you start, my friend. Where did you land here?
I hate this race. I absolutely hate this race. But I just hate this race because it's I don't know. Oftentimes I think a lot of these big races, especially in these older divisions, feel like there's sort of that anointed horse that just gets set up and they're supposed to win, and then they very often do. Whether it be 2 years ago with the White Abario, who wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, whatever, he said, oh, he's supposed to, and you're like, but that feels super suspect, and I don't know. I just had a really I didn't love this race because I didn't feel like I had a ton of good opinions that were contrary to sort of where everybody else is going to land. And when you look at this from a pace complexion sort of standpoint, the race should just kind of fall into Saudi Crown's lap, shouldn't it? He's your controlling pace on a track that tends to be very kind to those types of pace complexions. There's a couple of head scratching races in there. His Breeders' Cup Classic from 2023 and also his dirt mile from this past year. But if you kind of draw a lot, and again, and cross off the he apparently does not internationally travel well, but if you kind of cross a few races off, he just kind of dominates this field, or it feels like he just kind of should. And the only other horse that I really kind of ended up giving a really good look to was Locked. Again, Locked has really not done much wrong in his career. Comes off his Cigar Mile win Sorry, whatever, Cigar Mile Handicap, whatever they're referring it to as now, at the Duct. But with the exception of his Breeders' Cup Juvie, his you know his resume is pretty darn stellar. So, I think it's one of those situations of, how loose can Saudi Crown get on the front end, and do they really allow him to get away with murder? If they do, and they let him get loose and let him get comfortable, I think he just wires this. If there's a pace complexion where he gets a little pace pressure and can't get super comfortable on the front end, I think Locked is the most likely horse to track him down. Beyond that, I just felt it was like a lot of either has-beens or horses that this is just way too much for them. So those are the two I landed on. I didn't get super creative in here. I realized I probably ended up on your first and second choice. So I'm interested to see how you guys really looked at it, because I was having a hard time getting creative and trying to find a horse that was outside of those top two that I was really interested in.
Yeah, my comment about, so I think Locke is the best horse in this race. Maybe I'll start there. I think he is, and I don't think it's that close. The post really sucks. And I'm not one of those people that think, oh, he's a closer, the post doesn't matter. Because I don't think he's a horse that wants to be last in this field. I mean, he was mid-pack in his last race, and he was second two back. This is not a horse that is a hopelessly devoid of early foot, one-run closer. And that short run to the first turn, going a mile and an eighth at Gulfstream, I think is going to cost him probably 2 lengths, being strung out wide into that turn. Either that, or he has to take back a lot further than I think would really be ideal in this race. He might have like Krupe beat, but I don't think he's going to have too many others, from where he's drawn. So I think he's the best horse, but I'm nervous about the post. Saudi Crown, I really don't know what to do with. If there was an honest pace scenario in here, I think it'd be a toss for me. I do think the pace and the draw both work out perfectly for him, which makes it a little bit tougher for me to throw him out. I do think he's a little bit exposed at this level, though. Whenever he steps up to Grade 1 company, he kind of shits the bed. I mean, he was terrible in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I mean, just abysmally bad. In his Go Dolphin Mile over in Dubai, he was awful. His Saudi Cup run was actually pretty good given the fractions he set that day. But then you go back to his Breeders' Cup Classic last year, which was just an embarrassment. And it just kind of seems like he shows up when he's facing horses that maybe aren't that good. But whenever he gets against legitimate company, he kind of just falls out of the back of the field. I mean, he kind of wins or he misses the board. So he's one that I don't know what to do with. I'd love to throw him out because I don't think he's really classy enough, so to speak, or doesn't maybe have the heart or whatever you want to call it to compete against a group like this. But I just think that the pace and the draw worked out for him so well that I have a harder time doing that. The only other horse that I did like in here, and maybe this will be Josh's price, maybe not. Josh, why don't I kick it to you first in case it is your price?
Yeah, so I agree with you guys about Locked. I think this is the one race where I'm taking the favorite because it's the best horse, and I'm going to use others because I do think the horse is a little suspect, but I mean he's the class of the field. He's the best horse. He's the fastest horse. This should be his coming out party. Beating White Barrio, Saudi Crown, and some of these other better older horses. Saudi Crown, I think you've probably besmirched him enough, but we Uncle Sully talking about candy ass trips. If you want to talk about candy ass fields, this horse is only beat up on candy ass fields. And as soon as this horse gets any real horses with him, he just seems to fold. And even with what I think is going to be a pace advantage in here, I'm just a little, I just don't see it. I mean, maybe I have the ghost of White Barrio in here as a B, just because this horse absolutely loves Gulfstream. The last 2 races were absolutely under no circumstances the target, right? This horse is pointed to this race. So this is it. This is the shit or get off the pot. We'll see if this horse, what happens to the 6-year-old season. I would not be surprised to see White Barrio win this race. And many people will call me the second biggest White Barrio fan on Twitter, next to Rennie probably. But yeah, he's going to be on all my tickets. But I think he's probably Saffie Joseph's second best shot to win this race. I think
Yes,
the best shot.
I knew it.
The best shot to win this race actually is the 10 Skippy Longstocking.
Yes.
And this is just a case of you kind of go back and look through some of these races where this horse just didn't run well. And I think you can kind of start making some excuses for this horse. I mean, obviously the dirt mile, like, yeah, he wasn't winning that race. He's in it a little bit over his head. Ran fine in the Woodward, right? Was in the slop. And I mean, I guess based off the breeding, right, this horse should handle the slop fine. He's 2-1 and 2-1-0 in off the turf rate or off races. But then you get that Charlestown Classic. That was a nice race, right? I think it's a 3-turn race. But I think you really kind of start to see that this is definitely, I think, more of a 2-turn horse, right? The Whitney, once again, kind of in over his head. But one thing you kind of start noticing, I think, is that this is definitely a horse that wants to be on the front end, wants to be on the lead, and has actually, I think, probably gone against some actually fast paces and is actually set up against fast paces, unlike a horse like Saudi Crown, who tends to just kind of get things like his own way. So I just think Skippy Longstocking is, I don't know. I think he's just more proven. I think you're getting a much, much better price. I think Skippy Longstocking and Saudi Crown, if you kind of looked at them, side by side, they almost look exactly like the same horse. So I don't know. I think Skippy Longstocking makes a ton of sense here. And Caleb, I'm glad to see that you're also on the Skippy Longstocking train here.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Locked is going to be a single A for me, but Skippy is going to be a B that I'll use prominently. I mean, his dirt mile, if you watch the replay, he was in the 6 path the entire race. He drew the parking lot in a mile configuration at Del Mar, which is just extremely brutal. And he's not built to come from that far back. If you factor in ground loss, assuming a path is a length, he probably wins that race actually. So yeah, I mean, I don't think he's the best horse in the race. But I think that if the pace is on the slow side and Saudi Crown is a bit faint-hearted, then Skippy has to get first run, and maybe the situation works out to where he can hold him off. Again, not a high confidence play for me, but definitely the only price I could really make a case for in this race.
You guys do realize that just because a horse owes you money doesn't mean they're ever going to actually pay you off for that money they owe you, right? Like, just we're all aware of this. That doesn't actually work out that way.
Hashtag stop chasing losses.
Yes. Hashtag stop chasing losses.
Well, Mark, please make sure you make it out to our Vegas trip so you can stop me from putting that extra 100 into the slot machine after I'm down a couple hundred. So,
is that like reaching for your wallet the second time?
Oh, that's definitely like reaching for your wallet the second
cool.
time.
Cool. Okay.
There are a couple of horses in here that I didn't use, but I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on. Clearly, y'all didn't use them, or you'd have mentioned them. But Josh, I saw you had a question mark on the number 1, Mix 2. What did you think of him?
So, Mark's angle, right, on the 2 Saudi Crown, right, Lone Speed going to get all his own way, and then it kind of brought me back and made me think of Mixto's Pacific Classic win, right, where he just got the absolute dream trip that time, right? He sat there second and ended up winning it at a really nice price. Obviously, they ran him in the Classic, and I mean in way over his head there, but honestly, he came back in that Native Diver and kind of backed up the Pacific Classic a little bit. Ran third to Skinner and Tarantino in there, but it's kind of the reason I have a question mark next to him is because I kind of see him similar to I see Saudi Crown. Like, I mean, maybe there's a shot that he's drawn on the rail. You get Frankie Dettori aboard, and we've seen this happen already where Frankie's not afraid to get aggressive with horses like this and go, especially if he thinks the pace is slow. He'll go out there and he'll just get the lead. So I do think that maybe he presents a bit of an issue for Saudi Crown in that if Saudi Crown thinks he's just going to sit up there on just a real slow pace, I think the one pushes him at least a little bit. My only question is whether or not he pushes them enough to where he's actually got a shot to win this race. And like I said, like we're talking like this has got to be a speed favoring track, and we think that it's definitely going to be someone on the front end, because I think if you're looking at the front end horses, I mean, Mixto's got the rail, right? He's got an aggressive rider aboard, and I mean, he does have races that kind of fit here. So, yeah, I don't know. I thought he was interesting purely from a pace play, but I do think that he's definitely a long shot here. I mean, 10-1 is probably not the price I want on Mixto, but now I'm curious, what did you think?
Well, I mean, I sort of had him as an unknown, and I think you kind of convinced me to have him on a ticket somewhere as a B or C type. Because I think you're right. His Pacific Classic, it was a good trip, but he beat Full Serrano, who came back to win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and stuffed Saudi Crown into a locker. So, I mean, there's something to be said for the runbacks of that race anyway. And then that was such a big top for him that it's probably reasonable that he regressed a little bit in the Classic, maybe just in over his head anyway. But he got back to good form quickly. So if that was a bounce, he got back to pretty much near the top of his form in only 3 weeks later. So, I mean, if he is sitting on a pair or a forward move here, I think he could be tough with that pace setup, and with, pansy ass Florent Giroux on Saudi Crown, he might not even get the lead. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument to be made for Mix 2. And I mean, by no means do I think he's the likeliest winner, but I could use him. I could see it.
So I did have one price in here that I liked, and it's probably going to be the longest price on the board. Anybody give any look to Power Squeeze, the 12 horse in here? I realize it's a filly going versus the boys. On paper, she's just way too slow to win this. But we've seen a couple of times recently where you had a situation that, this summer in the Travers where you had a filly who goes
Josh,
over
sound the
the
alert,
boys.
please. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
You can do it. Go ahead. Go ahead. There it is.
Because this is the only argument to bet this horse from this post in this race is that you're just simping for Castellano.
Damn it. No, I guess where it's going here is we saw over the summer where, Philly goes versus the boys and suddenly jumps up by 15 points and runs way faster than she ever has. Is there any chance here she should get pace set up in front of her? Javi's won 2 of his 3 times up on her, the Delaware Oaks and the Bama. And also she's, a fresh 4-year-old. And a lot of times horses will take that step forward going from 3 to 4. She's going to be probably 75-1 or some sort of absurd price. She's a horse that I wouldn't want a lot of, but I might want just a tiny little bit, maybe a Seek type for me. Anybody give her a look at all?
So if Power Squeeze wins, does that mean that buyers are fake?
It means buyers are sexist.
Buyers are sexist. Okay.
Well, I mean, Andrew we did a stream earlier where Andrew made that kind of a take that there's been a couple of situations over the past year or two where the Phillies run versus the boys and suddenly they jump up by 10 points out of nowhere. It just sort of happens. I mean, and again, I don't want to say that the figures are fake, but that sort of has been a thing that's happened.
Yeah, and I think that point is extremely valid, but I don't think this is Torpedo Anna, and I think that makes a big difference.
Okay, that's valid. I mean that is the argument, right?
But I do think you'll probably you might be the longest price in the field. You probably will be. So I don't think, shoot your shot. One other horse, and I know we're kind of
we got to talk about it, right?
Was it the number 3? Because that's where I was going.
No, somebody's got to talk about Mystic Dan, right? We have to have that conversation.
I guess so. But I mean, you can tell me his last race was a prep, and sure, but I mean, it was a dog shit prep.
Then you got to explain the 2 races prior to that.
Yeah, right? I mean, how do you explain the Belmont? I mean, he was a flash in the pan in the Kentucky Derby. At least that's how I'm viewing it. And he's somewhere in between better than I thought he was going into the Kentucky Derby, but not as good as everybody else thinks he is coming out of the Kentucky Derby. And I just, I don't think he's ever run a race fast enough to win this race. And just because he's a Derby winner, there's not going to be value there. So for me, he's a complete toss.
Yeah, he's a complete toss for me as well. I realize McPeak is talking a big game about him going into this race, that he thinks he's better than he's ever been, and he thinks he's a major player to win this race. I just don't see it.
Right? Has
And
McPeak ever not liked one of his
no,
horses?
no, exactly. Right? Yeah. And I mean, I love the guy for how he shows up, talks his horses a big game. He makes them very accessible. His barn's very accessible. Like, he does all the right things for the sport. You'll love him for what he does, but you have to kind of separate that from a horse's realistic chances. And I think Mystic Dan needs to be 20 or 25 to 1 probably in this field from what he's ever actually shown up with on the track.
So if Kenny McPeak can somehow get just a very, very large hose and just drench the absolute hell out of the track at Gulfstream Park, then maybe Mystic Dan's got a chance. I honestly, at this point, Mystic Dan for me is basically an off-track horse. Like, I get right. He won the Derby, but I mean, if you don't look at the Derby, I mean, his best races have been on off tracks. And I mean, we always know that, Churchill Downs, I mean, they always get a ton of weather right around Derby time, even if they label the track as fast. There's some type of moisture in that track during that time. So, yeah, I just really think that at this point, like, until proven otherwise, this is a slop horse. Like, I want to see a wet track, and then maybe I move Mystic Dan up, but I don't know. Maybe
The problem with Mystic Dan is the fact that if a sloppy track moves him up, it also moves up others in here like Saudi Crown. So Saudi Crown gets more loose and gets more comfortable on the front end on a wet track. So I think you can get away with that when the other field is really suspect and given the offgoing. But there's definitely some in here that have shown that they already have a propensity for that. So I don't know what the weather forecast is in Florida, but if you're trying to make that angle, I think there's others that I prefer more given that that setup.
I will say, if I ever, won $1 billion or whatever for from like a Powerball or some kind of random Buffalo slot machine tournament, the big name trainer I would give a horse to would absolutely be Kenny McPeak.
Absolutely.
Because I would actually get to see my horse run, and that's basically all I would want. So, love.
Wait a second. If you want to see your horse run, wouldn't you go to the coach?
I would, but I mean, it's going to take me a couple years.
You want to see your horse run and then maybe actually win a race. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you said you want to talk about the 3 mark?
I mentioned there's 2 more horses I think that are maybe worth a quick chat anyway. The 3 was one of them, because Newgrange. There probably is a version of this horse that could compete in this race, but I don't know if it's the one we're going to get. I mean, some of those, back races where he beat Mixed 2 twice actually were pretty good runs. What do you think we get from Newgrange on the big layoff and the barn change?
You accuse me of squinting too hard sometimes to try to find things. This is that case, Caleb, where you're squinting a little.
I'm not using it. I'm just kind of generating conversation here.
No. I get where you're coming from. Yeah. I honestly disagree with you. I don't think there is a version of Newgrange that wins this race, because I don't think he's ever run a race on a track that's fast enough to win this race. I think he needs to find, in time form figures, he probably needs to find 6 or 7 points. I think he's just way too slow on anything he's ever done on track. Now, if you're saying he took a big step forward off the long layoff and the barn change, sure, you're probably going to get your price, and this is and if that's your argument, this is the time to take that shot, if you think that's the case. But boy, just for me, that's I just can't see it.
I agree with you, but I mean, what is his role in this race, right? Maybe that's a better way to put this, is that Phil D'Amato gives the horse up. He stays with Rockingham Ranch, but goes to Jose D'Angelo. So I'm not sure if that's a temporary thing or permanent. Clearly he was just shipped here in January. He missed a month of works from December through January. He's coming into this race off of 2 works since December 2nd. And his only way to win's got to be to go to the front, right? Or at least try.
It's got to be.
I mean, is he kind of, the whole world sees Saudi Crown as lone speed, good pace setup. I mean, but, even if he can't win, you've got an extremely aggressive rider and Jaramillo. I mean, doesn't this horse, if he does anything, has to go forward?
He has to. Yeah, I think that the only way to win here is to be very aggressive early. I just don't know if that's enough. I mean, if your argument is they're very aggressive with him early, it softens Saudi Crown up and sets it up for somebody else. Cool. I love that argument. I just don't see an argument where I can get Newgrange into the Super. So,
Mark,
Yeah,
if I put a gun to your head, Mark, and I said, give me the buyer number that wins this race, what is it?
103, 105, that kind of range.
So I believe, I don't have it in front of me. I believe Newgrange is running 99, right?
The highest I see on Newgrange is a 98. So yeah. I mean, if that's your argument, could he take
I mean,
that much?
granted, that 99 was in Bob Baffert's barn as a 3-year-old. So I mean, we're going back 3 years, but I think there is a version of Newgrange that does win this race, but he's in Bob Baffert's barn and Juan Hernandez is aboard. So I don't think we have that version this right now. But although, hey, Jose D'Angelo, 22% first time on the barn switch, and I mean, Jose D'Angelo has definitely moved a horse up on the barn switch before. So I mean, who knows? There's crazier things. I mean, I think Caleb, to your point. I think it really just adds, like I said, to the pace complexion of this race, right? Like if we really do think Saudi Crown's going to get right this like real easy trip, I mean, why wouldn't the 1 or the 3 push him or both? You know, I'm not going to have Saudi Crown on any of my tickets. I think he's kind of a soft horse. You know, I think he's going to win. He's going to win a couple more grade 3s, grade 2s, maybe even around here, but. I mean, I just feel like once he gets like actual horses in races, like graded stakes types winning horses, you know, he seems to kind of just fold up a little bit. I mean, like his best race was probably the Pennsylvania Derby last year, or 2 years ago now, where he beat Dreamlike and Il Miracolo. And well, I mean, I guess the Saudi Cup is probably his best race, but you know, I mean, Senor Buscador won that race, so that was just kind of an odd race in particular. So, yeah, I don't know. I definitely think of the short prices, Saudi Crown's the one I want the least of. I'll have White Barrio on some ticket just for old time's sake, and Locked is going to be on every ticket. I really do think the 10 is kind of the upset candidate here. I did see a couple things. Stephen Fox saying, how can you toss Mystic Dan? 3-year-olds destroyed the classic.
Yeah, none of those are running in this race. Next question.
Yeah, I mean, he beat Sierra Leone and Fierceness, but I mean, that's very liberal application of the transitive property to make that argument.
David Barista saying, you want to see your horse switch from dirt to turf, asking about us sending it to Kenny McPeak. Hey, it worked for Classic Causeway once. And then he went to Ascot and all other places for some reason. But
even better reason, you get to travel and see Europe.
Oh, there we go.
Has he finished that race in Ascot yet?
I don't think so. I think he's still.
Was he the one that also put a horse in the Ark? Was that him as well?
I don't think he could get a horse into the Ark, but he put him in one of the Ascot races. I know that.
There's some American trainer that shipped some like Zool Alpha kind of horse to the Ark. I can't remember who it was.
Anything else on this race you guys want to touch on?
30 seconds or less. Anyone give a look to Stronghold?
A tiny one. I felt a little dirty for doing it. I mean, sure. Crazier things have happened. Stronghold seems
What's
like
the price? 10-1?
Yep, 10-1.
Okay.
I mean, if you believe the time form figure off his last race, I realize it's going 7 furlongs. So can he stretch it out? You know, is he taking a step forward, going 3 to 4, which is often sometimes something that happens. At 10-1, it's not the worst 10-1 because I think you get every bit of 10-1. You might even get a little more than that.
Yeah, you know, his last fig's good. His other figs are mediocre. It does seem to settle for second a lot in some of these races against some of the more B-tier 3-year-olds. You know, horses like Dragoon Guard and Seize the Gray. But, you know, yeah, step forward is far from out of the question here. So I didn't know what to do with him. I like him a bit, but I don't know that he'll make any of my tickets. If he does, it'd be very much a fringe, like C type of a ticket.
Yeah, I think I take David's sort of take here, which is that he would be a horse that maybe I'd use underneath in trifectas or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's
yeah,
fair.
he does kind of tend to settle for second quite a lot.
He's got the Mark quote, hates getting his picture taken.
Even in quotations too.
Come from an artist, that's saying a lot.
I feel like we need that on the soundboard at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually one of the things I've been working on. I think I gotta clip Mark and get some of his Markisms on the soundboard over here. Get Too Cute, get Stellar on there somehow. But yeah, we'll yeah, I think now that we're back to this this more familiar setup, although it is still a little unfamiliar because we got the different things going on. But yeah, we got some other stuff we can do. Mark, take a shower and bid Stronghold adieu. Although I will say, Raging Torrent got like a 104 for that race on Bayer, but I don't know. That was that Malibu is a weird race every year because it's like has absolutely no business being a grade 1, has absolutely no business being a 3-year-old only race still, and I don't know. It's just tough to figure what horses are going to do out of that race. So, but hey, he did put Mystic Dan in the locker, so you know, I guess to Steve's point, right? If you're going to toss, if you're going to play a 3 or 4-year-old, why not Stronghold? Anything else you guys want to talk about on that card? Mark, I don't know. Did you look at the rest of it?
I did. I looked at the earlier races as well. It's a good, again, Pegasus card is always a good card. It's a good betting card just given field size and in general for this time of year, it's about as good as racing gets until we really get into it's probably one of the better American, North American cards until you get to Derby weekend, honestly. So, yeah, it's a fun little undercard. Nothing I really loved, nothing I was super excited to bet, but yeah, it's a good card.
Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really look through the whole card. I kind of just glanced through the stakes races, handicapped the late pick 5, and kind of eyeballed some of the earlier ones that weren't part of that sequence. Maybe light on star power. I mean, it's a day full of grade 3s is kind of what it feels like to me, even if there are a couple of dressed up grade 2s or grade 1s in there. But they're competitive. The field sizes are good. It's a 13 races. I actually love the synthetic handicaps on the Gulfstream all weather course. So I'm glad there's a couple of those in there. I love those all weather handicaps, especially the higher caliber ones, not the real cheap ones, because I feel like that's one of the few places left you can still find some value. And it seems like people or computers don't just really have a great handle on betting those yet. So I'm looking forward to some of the undercard for some of those races in particular, but overall it should be a good day.
Yeah, I thought there's some interesting things as well. You have definitely some barn changes that are interesting. Somebody like Chop Chop in the Pletcher barn, and there's some of those kind of moves that I think would be interesting to see how some horses run back. So I think it's one where I would be interested in watching races just from in their next start kind of a thing. What do I think of them for some certain horses? Like Chop Chop specifically was the one I was interested in.
What do you think the Chop Chop to Tumba Rumba double plays?
I think Chop Chop's a toss in that race, but to Chop Chop to Tumbarumba, I don't know, 270, 280, something like that.
Also, I mean, I don't know if you went far enough, Mark, but one of our favorite horses is running in race 5.
No way. Who's running?
The 9 horse in race 5.
Oh, is he actually going to run, or
he scratched? Well, they canceled, or he didn't run it at Turfway. So,
is that due to all the weather?
Yeah. So it looks like No Balls is listed as the 7-2 favorite in the Gulfstream Turf Sprint. So,
which No Balls actually comes up.
Yeah, it's interesting. day of races. We'll see how it kind of goes. Yeah, I don't mind the synthetic. I know some people hate it, but one of speaking of horses that owe me money, Emmanuel is running in race 6, going long on the synthetic in a handicap race for Mike Maker. So that's a horse that owes me money. We'll see if that pays out. He's actually not even a favorite. He's 8-1.
Yeah, considering we're talking about camera shy horses, there's one for you.
Dude, that race has actually got a lot of like
horses that at one point in their
turf.
career were big deals, and we thought were gonna be the next thing, and just kind of never showed up.
Well, Jerry the Nipper's in there too. Who's
I chased that New York bred forever in New York, and then he goes to Gulfstream and wins a synthetic race.
Somebody had a thing for smoking tea at one point. I remember that horse, who's now in the Chad Brown barn
and running on the synthetic. So you know that Chad thinks very highly of this horse.
What's the other smoking horse that Josh loves? Get Smoking.
Get Smoking. Oh man, if Get Smoking was running, dude, that'd be my only bet of the day. What are you talking about? So David Barista is asking, who is the fake Buick Appleby? So of the two in that sequence, which is the one that you're least likely to bet? Race 9, we got the Bold Act, and then you got Nation's Pride in race race 12. Yeah.
I think for me it's Bold Act. Just given the fact that the horse really just, I don't know. I mean, the Sycamore win, yes, but that was with a different Euro jack up, and just really hasn't. I don't know. Just seems to be kind of a disappointment the last few.
I wouldn't use the word fake as much as I love to call horses fake, but I would say Nation's Pride, even though I don't think he's the more fake horse, I think he's the more likely horse to lose because I think he actually has legitimate competition in his race, whereas Bold Act is catching a pretty suspect group. And even if he's probably the more suspect horse, I just think his competition is quite a bit worse. So I would probably go Nation's Pride is more likely to lose.
Oh, also Beautiful Love is running in race 7. That's the chop chop race. Beautiful Love is 5-2 there with Buick and Appleby. Beautiful Love ran 4th last time we saw him in the Filly and Mare Turf. But yeah, I mean, I would probably, I don't know. I singled both of the horses in the late, so I had a hard time. Going against either of them there. And then last question, Uncle Sully asking Caleb, are you using a crate for the puppy or just letting him sleep anywhere?
I love how invested you are, Uncle Sully. I have a crate for him. I'm going to attempt to use that for overnight. I don't really care if he gets on the furniture and stuff. I'm like not one of those dog owners, like not allowed on the couch or anything like that. I'm fine with that. But for sleeping, I mean, and just in general, I'd prefer to crate train him just to be able to like have somewhere to put him, for the times that I need to until I can really trust him to roam the house freely while I'm gone. So starting hopefully with the crate, but it may take some convincing.
The times that you need to.
Well, if I'm heading out.
or when we're all crashing at your place for Breeders'
Yeah, Cup. Well, he's sleeping with you.
Oh God. I'm just saying, if we do Breeders' Cup, Caleb, we could do a 24-hour stream in the house, right? And just degen that Saturday, probably all the way till shots in. Right.
we should absolutely do that.
I'm just saying we could absolutely do that. And then we could just take it on the road and go to Black Hawk afterwards and just get Mark on some 3-card poker. And yeah, it'll be beautiful.
You don't gotta sell me. I'm ready. Let's go tomorrow.
Well, that's going to do it for us here. You can check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at @wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Caleb's at Caleb WVU. Mark's at 2 Turns. I saw Sully asking about Thursday Turfway stream. I don't think it's happening this week, but we're trying. We're trying to get back to playing live and doing Thursdays. We just, like I said, we wanted to make sure we got some content out this week, and this is the best day to work for us. I'll be recording Drinking Champagne tonight, so that should be out sometime tomorrow morning. And then we will have an episode of You've Got to Be Shot Tinning Me up sometime on Friday night. So more content to come. I think Andrew and I are going to look at the Oaklawn Park late pick 4 on Saturday. So we'll go ahead and we'll get some more content up for you guys. But appreciate you guys. Have a good weekend. Let's make some money.